She had a pen in her hand, and that could have been a knife. The words of Donald Trump, his latest justification for the manhandling of a reporter earlier this month after battery charges were filed by Florida police against his campaign manager. So far, the love-hate relationship between the Republican frontrunner and the press has played in the real estate mogul's favor. But could that be changing? The Donald's approval ratings, as collated in a Huffington Post tracking poll we can show you now, seems to have plateaued, with nearly 2/3 of citizens taking a dislike to the reality TV star come politician. But he's still the odds-on favorite to win his party's nomination, and seeing how he's energized voters to turn out in record numbers in many primaries, we're going to be looking at the appeal of his message, which goes against the grain of his party on everything from free trade to the U.S.'s place on the world stage. Are his complaints over burden sharing when it comes to, say, NATO, much different from the current occupant of the White House? And for all his negatives, can Trump still win? Today in the France 24 debate, is he still Teflon Donald? With us, the former chair of Republicans abroad in Paris, Stuart Haugen. Welcome back. Welcome back as well to French political scientist Jean-Éric Brana, the author of Who Wants to Destroy the Republican Party? The astonishing Donald Trump will be joined shortly from Washington by Josh Kraushaar, of the National Journal. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. When your name is Donald Trump, the best defense is offense. Alexander Alcott talks us through that case against his campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski.
Caught on camera, Donald Trump's campaign manager grabs the arm of reporter Michelle Fields, pulling her away from the Republican frontrunner. Corey Lewandowski has been charged with simple battery and faces a maximum sentence of a year in prison or a fine of $1,000. Donald Trump defended his campaign manager and said he's sticking by him.
You know, the press conference lasted for a long time, like 45 minutes, and I was leaving, and she runs up, and you can see, in fact, there are pictures where I could show you some, I actually have some in the other room, but there are pictures where she's grabbing my arm. And you just look at that tape throughout the whole process, and you see how unfair it is. It's a very unfair. He's a good person.
All right, get him out of here, please. Get him out. Get him out.
Donald Trump's campaign has been marked by threats, insults and physical confrontations. At a recent campaign rally in Arizona, Lewandowski himself can be seen taking a very hands-on approach amid scuffles in the crowd. The billionaire's main Republican rival said the case is typical of Trump's entire campaign.
When you have a campaign that is built on personal insults, on attacks, and now physical violence, that has no place in a political campaign. It has no place in our democracy.
Lewandowski is set to stay in his position. Trump's team says he's absolutely innocent and looks forward to his day in court, where he'll plead not guilty.
Stuart Haugen, do you share Ted Cruz's concern there about the level of violence at Trump rallies?
Well, I share a concern about the level of violence. I certainly don't share his attribution of guilt for that. And frankly, I find it disappointing that Ted Cruz is doing that. As a constitutional lawyer and a constitutional expert, what he should be saying is everyone has the right to freedom of expression, and people have gone out of their way to create problems for Donald Trump at his MoveOn.org, George Soros' backed group. We know this is where much of this is coming from. Now, this issue with Michelle Fields, I think this is a little bit crazy, because anybody who runs around on the floor of a political rally trying to get in the candidate's face knows there's going to be some jostling. I don't see that. If this wasn't Donald Trump, I don't think anything would have happened here.
If this wasn't Donald Trump, nothing would have happened?
If this wasn't Donald Trump, there would have been no charges filed. She was not abused. She was pulled out of the way after she was pawing a candidate, trying to get it in his face to get his attention. That is the role of a campaign team. I'm surprised that she is allowed to get away with that.
But we know Corey Lewandowski does have a record of adversary.
What, you say we have that? How do we know that? Because he protects his candidate in a public setting?
Of sometimes adversarial comments with reporters in the past.
Well, this is today's politics. I mean, it's an adversarial environment. When you go in the ring, I just don't think this would be happening if there was not a calculated effort by the media and by people at the establishment level to take Trump down.
All right, we're joined by Josh Krasauer, political editor for the National Journal. He pens the weekly Against the Grain column. Welcome back to the France 24 debate. Josh, how is this story playing out where you are? You just heard Stuart Haugen saying that Trump is being victimized here.
Well, look, I mean, this is a story where the cover-up is worse than the crime. I mean, the crime itself isn't great news for the Trump campaign. Trump's campaign manager was doing security, and he bruised badly the arm of a reporter who was just trying to ask the candidate a question. But I think this would have been a non-issue if he apologized and admitted to what happened. But in the immediate aftermath of the event, both Lewandowski and Trump both said nothing happened. There was no touching, nothing went down, and obviously there's now videotape that confirms that there was an incident that took place. Now, whether it rises to the level of a police prosecution, of a court hearing to see whether this is a misdemeanor or not, I don't know. But when you lie about something so basic, it really raises the questions about how honest you are in everything else that you're talking about. So, you know, the spin keeps changing from the Trump campaign. This would have been a one-day story if Lewandowski apologized, said he was just trying to protect the candidate, it got a little rough. That's it, and that would have been the end of it. But because Trump and his campaign manager haven't been honest about what actually happened, it's made a mountain out of a molehill.
Is Donald Trump apologizing is not in his campaign strategy?
Well, Donald Trump last night on CNN, it's not in his DNA, that's right. And he on CNN last night, he couldn't even remember any time in his life until he had to go back to his childhood into an incident in which he apologized for anything. So this is not what Donald Trump does, even though he's certainly made his share of mistakes on the campaign trail. He's refusing to apologize for anything.
And at the end of the day, Jean-Éric Brana, will this hurt or help the Republican frontrunner?
Or nothing will happen, as usual, because there have been so many episodes from the beginning with Donald Trump. First of all, we were mentioning the lies. This campaign is full of lies, on both sides actually, not only with Donald Trump. This is really, really astonishing, I think. But in the case of Donald Trump, nothing at all eats the candidate. This is really amazing from a European point of view, from an American point of view as well. All the episodes that happened from the beginning, remember from the 6th of August, the first Republican debate, every week from that date we've been told that all the events that occurred should have made Donald Trump fall from the place where he was, because he was already the leader. Nothing happened.
So every time you think there's a gotcha moment, it turns out not to be. How do you explain that?
Nothing will happen. At first, because his strategy is to say, you know, I'm strong, I'm going to protect the American people, so I'm not going to apologize, never. This is part of Trump's strategy, first of all. And the American people love that. His supporters love that. They say, yeah, this guy is strong, you know. He's got another way to talk politics. This is not the usual way to speak to the people and to act as a politician. He's not a politician. Remember, from the beginning, he said, I'm not a politician. I'm not an insider. I'm different. I'm like you. And here, what do we see? We see that he's backing Lewandowski. Why? Because if you've got a friend in pain, you can say, hey, I'm with you. You know, I'm not going to let it down. And this is very, very important for his supporters. They say, you know, this man, whatever will happen to the country, it will be on our side. Not like those Reno that we sent to Washington and were not going to be the people we wanted them to be. That's really, really not an anecdotic problem, but really a continuity in this campaign that Donald Trump wants to appear a strong person. You know, in a normal campaign, he should have apologized. I do agree with what your correspondent said. Saying, I make an apology, and maybe to fire Lewandowski could have been a good strategy for any campaigner, not for Donald Trump. He's not in this move, so he's acting differently simply because he wants to show that he's different.
All right, so it's part of his strategy. Does that irk you, a potential president who never says sorry for anything?
Our current president has never said sorry for anything either, and he's made fundamental errors as the commander-in-chief.
The campaign trail in 2008 when there were racist
remarks by
I'm talking about
as a president who's made fundamental errors across the world. particularly in foreign policy, and has never once acknowledged responsibility for it. It's always somebody else's fault. It was always George W. Bush's. Accountability in politics just pretty much doesn't exist, does it? I'm not sure why Donald Trump is any different than any other politician. They're not taking responsibility for their mistakes, and I think that, frankly, is one of the reasons that Donald Trump's campaign exists. People are fed up. Why they've chosen Donald Trump? He just happens to be the mouthpiece for a lot of anger and a lot of frustration.
All right, so no different from any other politician, you're saying.
More blustery, more brash, but frankly, at the base of it, we're sitting here talking about lies in politics. How can we talk about lies in politics with a straight face? Let's go. I mean, we can go back on both sides of the aisle. The only person out there who I haven't really caught in a massive lie would be Bernie Sanders, and he's unelectable. Hillary Clinton has lived a life of lies. Trump and Cruz have been caught in cases. These are politicians. These are not people whose stock in life is telling the pure truth about things. It's about getting elected.
Now, on the hashtag F24 debate, we asked you, is Donald Trump electable at first sight? Many of you said no in our Snap poll, but Ali Mauritania says, yes, he is electable to Americans because they have an independent, rebellious spirit against the establishment. Nonetheless, in this particular case, we're talking about a reporter who's manhandled, a female reporter who's manhandled. Mm-hmm. And this could play well, this I'm pitch, during the primaries. It has so far. How will it play in the general election with female voters?
I think if Donald Trump has a problem with female voters, this won't change. This is not going to make it worse or better. He apparently doesn't poll well with females. I don't know if that will be the ultimate outcome, but I don't see this playing any role realistically in the general election.
If I may interrupt
Sure,
you,
please.
actually, Donald Trump had an occasion here to show a different face to women. About 70% of American female electors don't want Donald Trump. So he had a possibility to say, this journalist, who is a female journalist, has been hurt, so I'm going to make an apology or say something or
No, I see
in
where
our
you're going.
direction. He did not. So the message which is sent here is again against women. In the general election, I think this could hurt.
I don't agree with you for the sole reason that this is not a woman on the street being dealt with badly. This is a brassy, pushy. No, there's a big difference because this whole Trump phenomenon is a reaction to the establishment and the media, and she has a long history of crying wolf, and several times she's been forced to back off of that and say, okay, maybe it didn't happen quite the way I claimed. Here, there's a video. She was held back, pulled. I don't think it rises to battery in the context it's in. We'll see what the courts and the legal system decides. But I don't see her as getting the empathy, if you will, of America's middle-class women. Now, Trump has enough problems with women. He doesn't need more.
You enter into the details, but I don't think that women will enter into the details. Just what they will see is that a woman has been battered.
She is part of the media. They don't want details. She is the elite establishment.
She's a woman, and she has been battered by a journalist.
Let me ask on this one, Josh Krashauer, how is the story playing where you are?
Well, look, let's remember that this isn't just about Michelle Fields and this one incident. It's about Donald Trump retweeting these horrible pictures of Heidi Cruz to all of his supporters on Twitter. It's about him attacking the spouse of his biggest rival. It's about him maliciously going after Megyn Kelly, who's on Fox News, which is one of the conservative-leaning networks in the United States. This is not an isolated incident. And when you look at the polling numbers, I mean, in Wisconsin, Donald Trump and his supporters have said he wants to really recreate the map in the Rust Belt. Well, there was a poll that just came out today, one of the best polls in Wisconsin, showing Donald Trump's unfavorability rating among all Wisconsin voters at 70%. Among women, it's even higher, near 80%. That is a formula for disaster for the Republican Party. This isn't just bad numbers for any Republican candidate. These are historically horrible numbers for any Republican ever to run on a statewide or national ballot.
And that's an important primary coming up in Wisconsin, Josh, because it's the only one before some big primaries coming up in mid-April. If Donald Trump wins, is he a shoo-in for the nomination? And if he loses, it's wide open?
It's a big bellwether. I wouldn't be quite that overwhelming in my assessment, but Trump is losing by 10 points right now, according to that same poll. And if he loses by 10 points to Ted Cruz, he's probably not going to win many delegates, if any, out of the state of Wisconsin. So that would mean the lion's share of the 45 or so delegates in Wisconsin would go in Cruz's direction and would really make it harder for Donald Trump to get that majority of delegates he needs to clinch the nomination. Right now, he's close, but not quite on that path. A setback in Wisconsin would put him further back on the path, and we're looking more and more like we're going to head into a contested convention, and that's why Trump lately has started to hint that he'll win if it's a majority, if he wins a plurality of the delegates going into Cleveland. So it's this is shaping up as a really chaotic situation.
And Josh, on that, you mentioned those personal attacks against the wife of candidate Ted Cruz. How do you explain that?
This is who Donald Trump is. I mean, I think even some of his strongest supporters, people like Ann Coulter, Newt Gingrich, have started to express astonishment that Trump isn't acting just a little bit more presidential. I mean, the bar is so low at this point that if he just hired some serious policy advisors, if he withheld his attacks, the nasty attacks against Heidi Cruz and other women that he doesn't like, he probably would have that majority. He probably could get the nomination without having it to go to a contested convention fight. But he seems unwilling or unable to be that disciplined, and that's what's alarming so many Republicans. The list of anti-Trump Republicans seems to be growing by the day.
And Trump's position has so far been, Stuart Haugen, that so what if there's lots of people in the establishment who don't like me? I have the votes. But
that's
come
his
the
entire
convention,
strength is the anti-establishment attack. But
come the convention, will he be able to unite the party?
I don't know. There's certainly a strong desire on the part of Republicans to win the presidency. I mean, if you look at what Republicans have done over the last 7 years at the state level, we are in a historically dominant position across every level. And the only thing we haven't won is the presidency. But it's not coming down as a very simple task.
Not a simple task. We're going to pick up on that point when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.